So today we are making spaghetti with meat sauce in it. First, we set our pot of water on to boil. You can see it at the far end of the stove over there. It is steaming right now, and you can probably feel that with your hand. If you stuck your hand over it, you could feel the steam coming off of it. The next thing that we did, we put our 1 pound of ground meat in a pan, and it does have enough fat in it that you don't need to use oil, but if you used a lean meat like chicken or turkey or pork, you would probably want to put just a little bit of oil in the bottom of that pan. You want to use a stiff spatula to try and chop up that meat. It's cooking at like about medium-high to medium heat right now. And after we did that, we used a bent spoon, a bent measuring spoon, which you can just get at the dollar store and bend yourself, to measure oil, about 2 tablespoons, into our sauce pot, which is in the middle of the stove there. And then we used a large can of tomatoes that we opened with a can opener and then dumped it right in there with the oil. We also have some chopped garlic that is in that pot with the tomatoes to make our sauce. So now
we are about to add our basil to our sauce. I just got sauce everywhere. I'm 100% positive of it. It's okay.
You want to make sure that you keep your space clean. If you think you might have spilled, then you can clean it up real fast with some paper towel, either dry or wet. And so yeah, you just want to make sure that you keep yourself clean so that nothing burns on the stove top or anything like that.
I'm going to turn this down just a tiny bit.
Yeah, so you can hear the tomato
bubbling.
sauce is bubbling. And that means that it's starting to get warm, so you can actually turn it down a little bit at that point.
Alright, so now I am going to, oops, move that out of the way. Let's see, I need a teaspoon.
So we have another set of measuring spoons here, not the bent ones.
Not the bent ones.
Because we're using a dry ingredient now, which is much easier to work with. And this is basil.
We are adding
classic Italian ingredient.
for sure. I have to make sure I've got the right size. I've got the right size, okay. I'm going to take a half a teaspoon of basil, scoop it out the jar. I run my finger just lightly across the top of it to get any excess off.
Now, how did you know that that was the half teaspoon?
It's the second size from the smallest.
So you can memorize the order of the measuring spoons and what size those are.
The smallest is 1/4. The next one is 1/2 teaspoon. And then the next one is 1 full teaspoon. And then the biggest one is 1 tablespoon.
Some sets also have a half tablespoon, but this one doesn't.
Stir that up. Is my water still boiling?
Turn your water up a little bit more. It's steaming but not boiling.
Yeah, I'm about to put the pasta.
You can hear your water boil too.
I did not hear it boiling, so I asked. Alright, so what next? What next? Our meat is almost done.
Yeah, so the meat is about, I'd say, 3/4 of the way cooked. It does change in smell and texture when it's cooked all the way through. If you're worried about it not being cooked all the way through, you can always cook it extra, but the more that you cook it, the tougher it gets. And it's just something that you have to experiment with.
But the best thing is you'd rather have it overcooked than undercooked, just saying.
Yes, because then you don't
like
get
one
sick.
thing you really gotta remember. Overcooked is better than undercooked. I am about to get a colander out so I can drain the meat.
So high-fat meats like beef are going to have quite a bit of extra juice and grease in the bottom of your pan. So this is a good way of getting rid of that without spilling stuff everywhere. We like to get a strainer out, put it in the sink, and then just strain your meat basically into a disposable container. Then you can just throw that container away. One thing that you can do is just save like butter containers and stuff from the store so that you can just throw that away instead of trying to use like your nice Tupperware or something like that. Leaner meats like chicken and turkey and pork are not going to have as much fat. So like I said at the beginning, sometimes you could actually add a little bit of oil to keep it from sticking together, and those don't usually need to be drained.
Do we have an old container I can use?
Maybe. I'm gonna go find an old containers.
I do not mind washing Tupperware.
Don't worry about it, just do what you need to do.
Okay. That is a job.
Here, we have old Tupperware.
Found one? Can you have that, please? Thank you.
So we just put that in the bottom of our sink and put the strainer or colander on top of it. And then we will go get our meat. Is it cooked?
I think it's done. It smells done. And if it's not done, it's going to cook in the sauce for a few minutes anyway.
Yes, so that is another thing, is that if it's not quite done, your meat, you are just gonna put it in the sauce and it will cook for a little bit afterwards anyway.
Like that? Yeah, I did turn that off.
Make sure you turn the burner off.
Burner is off, off, off. Hot, 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 hot. Turn into me, I got hot. I got this. I got this. Oh, come on.
It's not on the container
No,
anymore.
I know. It's not standing up. Oh, cool. See here? I'll put you here. And then very carefully, I don't know if this is gonna work. I'm gonna try it. Very carefully, I'm gonna pour the meat into the drainer, colander, whatever. Yeah, I don't know.
You don't need to pour all of it, just enough to get the grease out of there.
I think the thing tipped over. I think it did. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. It's good. It's good. It's good.
And then you can just pour.
I don't know what that was.
That's okay. The rest of it in there.
All right.
Drain it all out.
I'm going to shuffle it just a tiny bit. Shake, shake, shake. All right. And then
right back in the pan.
just for a second, just while I transfer it.
And instead of bringing it from the sink to the stove in the strainer, or putting it back in the pan so that you don't drip juice on the floor, because then you have to try and clean that up.
Okay. I'm going to stir the sauce. What the heck? What the heck? Come on. Cook, come on. What are you doing? All right. So, what was I doing? Putting the meat in the sauce. Okay. This is going to be tricky. I'm going to move it off the burner for just a second.
Hey, Halen,
Yes?
do it the other way.
Do what the other way?
The sauce in the meat pan.
Woo! Great idea. I'm going to put the meat on that.
There's an idea.
That's fantastic.
You can use the smaller pan to pour into the big pan instead of pouring the big pan into the small pan. It's all going in the same place anyway, so there you go.
Scoop some extra out if I can. Oh, that's good. That should be good. Okay, now I'm gonna stir that up again. Very gently. I don't want to overdo the pan.
That is a good point. So now it's in a shallow pan instead of a deep pan.
You gotta stir it very carefully.
Yes. You don't want to push it over the edge by accident, but it is a wider pan, so that might be a little easier.
Alright, that's good. What? Put that back on the stove. Is that boiling?
Not yet, but let's pretend that it is. So you can just put the spaghetti right into the pot once it actually is boiling, and that will cook for how long?
I've never actually timed it. I think it's between 8 and 10 minutes. I normally take a fork and test them every couple minutes just to see if they're done or not.
That's a good idea.
Just scoop it up.
Because also some people like their spaghetti or a little more or a little less cooked, so you can cook it to your own liking by taking a fork and just grabbing one little piece out and testing it once it's a little bit cool. You don't want to burn yourself. So is there anything special that we do to the pasta before we put it in?
Sometimes it kind of depends on the person. I personally like my pasta a little salty, like with a little bit of flavor. So I tend to put some salt in my water while the noodles are cooking. But I don't know if I want to do that. I'll do that. I'm going to do that. Oh, boy. I will be right over there. Just a second. Just a second. There it is.
So putting salt in the water adds a little bit of flavor to your water, and that also makes the pasta a little bit more flavorful. Some people don't like that much salt, but in this case we are going to use a measuring spoon to put a little bit of salt in the water pot.
We're going to put a half a teaspoon in.
And again, you can memorize the order of your spoons by size.
There's that. Salt. Back over here. All right, everything is cooking. Is the water boiling? No.
Not yet.
Normally you can hear water boiling. It makes like bubbling noises. Right now it's just kind of hissing at us.
You don't want to stir the pasta in there a little bit.
Huh?
You don't want to stir the pasta a little bit.
Pasta's not in there yet.
Oh.
It's not boiling yet. I would like it to boil before I put stuff in.
So if you would like, if you want your water to boil faster, you can turn it all the way up to high. I have turned it up a little bit.
I think
So
it's at like the speed cooker now.
Yeah, so we can turn it all the way up to high, and then it will boil quite a bit faster, but you don't want to keep it on high once you put the pasta in. Once you put the pasta in, you might want to turn it down to medium-high or so. So we're going to wait just until that water boils, and then we can put the pasta in. So as you can see, timing is a little bit of a thing that happens in cooking. And you can also always use your extra time, if you have some, to clean up and stuff.
I am going to wash the colander that I just drained the meat in so I can drain pasta in it too.
Oh, yes.
Or not, because this is too small. It's not going to hold all that pasta.
Oh. And if anybody is interested, that is our dog.
It's the Brodo. All right.
He looks very wary about being in the kitchen.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to turn the heat on the sauce up just a tiny bit. Because I want 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, thinking. Inner monologue.
We have combined the meat and the sauce together, and it's still cooking just a little bit to keep it warm. You can continue to stir it up and stuff, and all the flavors will kind of meld together and be delicious.
And so about this sauce, this is a beginner level pasta sauce. You can, if you want, you can add whatever you want. You can put onions, you can put mushrooms, you can put bell pepper, you can put anything in there. But for now, this is just tomato sauce. Well, meat sauce technically. Meat and tomato? What would they call it? Just meat sauce?
Water is now boiling.
Oh, you're right.
Look
I was
at
not
that.
paying attention.
So
There we go.
I'm gonna see if I can get this close enough so you can actually hear it. I don't know if you can hear it on the video. Maybe a little bit. But we are going to use a whole pack of spaghetti, is that right? We're using a whole pack of spaghetti, just like we used 1 whole pound of meat and a whole can of tomato sauce.
It was a 28-ounce can of tomato.
28 ounces.
I can't get this open. My fingers are slippery. Where are scissors? Right there.
Always use tools.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Put that back. And then I'll put the piece of plastic in my pocket so I don't lose it. All right, and how am I going to do this? All right, so I'm going to take the package of spaghetti and do it in half. I'm gonna do it 1/2 at a time. Okay? So what we're gonna do is you're gonna take your pasta in one hand, and with your other hand, you are going to use the back of your fingernails, the very tips of your fingernails, to find the pot, like this, so you can put them in, like so. And you can also use I guess you could use the noodles like a cane to try to find your way, but you know, this is just how I do it. I'm going to use I had one, a fork. Going to use a fork to push the noodles down into the water. Like that. Now we're gonna take the other half of pasta and we're gonna put the other half in too. Just like that. We are in. Just like that. Okay. Garbage. Okay. I'm going to use the fork to squash the noodles down. And then I'm going to use a pasta cloth or a spaghetti spoon. I think I spilled, yeah I did, okay. There. A noodle fell out of my pot, so I'm just sticking it back in. Okay. So I'm gonna turn the heat for the noodles down just a little bit, because it doesn't need to boil quite so much once they're actually in. Now I'm going to, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna stir the sauce real quick.
Spaghetti spoon.
What's that?
You're gonna use your spaghetti spoon.
Oh yeah, you're right, thank you. I'm going to use the spaghetti spoon to stir up my spaghetti. Just like this. I'm gonna, okay, use my fingernails. Find the handle, there it is. Handle. And so I've noticed with some pots, it's not all pots, but sometimes noodles stick to the bottoms and the sides. I don't know what to do about that. Hey Gwen, is there a good cooking tip for that?
Nope, you just gotta stir it when you get it in there so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pot.
Stir it, keep stirring it so it never sticks.
No, you just stir it once in a while it's
Okay. I'm gonna trust you on this one. Okay. So those are gonna cook for
about 8 more minutes.
8 more minutes, yeah.
You can tell a story about your cooking exploits.
Like what?
What are the funnest things you've ever cooked?
Funnest, easiest, the thing I like the most. So pasta is one of my favorite things to eat ever. So one of my favorite things to make is they have this jarred pasta sauce. It's called vodka sauce. I'm not actually sure what's in it, but it's real tangy, it's real tart, and I really like it. But I make pasta with the vodka sauce and shrimp and asparagus and onion and mushroom. And I make it with bucatini pasta, because bucatini is cool. It's kind of like really thick spaghetti, but it's hollow. It's got like a hole in the middle of it, so it like holds sauce. It's awesome. I love bucatini. Okay.
Just continue to stir your sauce.
So one of my favorite things to make at camp is banana boats. When you take a banana and you put it inside aluminum foil and you add all sorts of candies and sugar and all sorts of fun stuff, and then you cook it over the fire and it kind of turns into like banana syrup goo. It's delicious. It's one of my favorite things ever.
What about bean dip?
Bean dip is something I used to make all the time because I didn't have very much money. All it is it's refried beans and sour cream and cheese and green onions and tomato. It's really good, and you scoop it up with tortilla chips. But yeah, I lived off of that for like a year because I was poor.
But it's delicious. So.
It's delicious. It was fantastic. It was like Super Bowl Sunday every day. Okay. I think the sauce is done. Just gonna let it sit there.
So once you think the sauce is ready, if it's mixed up enough for your liking and warm enough, you can actually just turn it right off.
Which is what I am
And
doing.
it should stay a little bit warm while your pasta finishes cooking.
It smells good. Okay.
And the pasta's at what we call a rolling boil right now.
Yep.
I don't know if you can hear that. I'm gonna get a little closer again so you can maybe hear it. So it's not like extra boily, but it's definitely boiling. The pasta has actually grown a little bit, so it looks like there's more pasta in there than when we started. That's just because it's soaking up all that water, and the salt that's actually in that water too is going right into that pasta.
I'm going to use my fork to scoop up the noodle out. I'm going to leave it hanging in the air for just a second. Just a second. Okay, now I'm going to touch it. It is not done. It's bendy, but it's still kind of got like a crunchy feeling on the inside. I don't want to eat that. All right, here's that. I'm gonna give it
Just a couple more minutes.
Give it a minute. It's almost there.
What else do you like to make, Valen?
I like to make lots of stuff, mostly desserts.
Desserts are delicious.
Oh yeah. One of my favorite desserts is strawberry pound cake. I think the original story behind pound cake is they used to use like a pound of butter and then a pound of flour and then a pound of whatever, but I'm not actually sure. You know? That's just...
But it tastes really good.
Oh yeah, it does. It's fantastic. Especially like, so when you make the strawberry pound cake, you also make like, it's like a glaze to go on top of it. You mix milk and powdered sugar and pureed strawberry together. It's delicious. And you just sort of put it over the top of your cake and...
You're gonna test the pasta again. You can just keep doing this. You hold it up in the air until it cools off just a little bit, just enough so you can feel it.
Oh my gosh, guys.
And it's ready.
Check it out.
And then you can eat a piece, because why not? So you just wound it around your fingers and it's pretty pliable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now...
I'm gonna give it 1 more minute.
Okay.
Let's count down from 60. Just kidding.
So sometimes you just gotta try it in order to actually get it
It's
to the...
not quite done.
Yeah.
It's super pliable, but it's not... It's a little chewy. It's getting stuck in my teeth.
It's just one way to use texture to help you in your cooking. You can really hear it boiling.
Oh yeah. It's almost done.
You might be able to actually just turn it off and let it boil.
Okay.
So once you turn it off, it will boil for a little bit longer until some heat like dissipates. So if you're kind of scared about turning on or off your stove and moving hot things around while it's on, then you can just turn it off a little bit beforehand when it's almost ready, and then just let the residual heat in there finish cooking the pasta.
I'm gonna wait till the boiling stops.
That might be a while. You can already hear and see that it's not boiling quite as much as it was.
Nope, not quite. What does it look like, Krista?
I don't know. There's like 3 little pockets of little bubbles that are coming up. And the rest of it is pretty calm.
Alright, I think it's about done boiling. I'm gonna use this to scoop.
So what is special about a spaghetti spoon?
I call them pasta claws.
Or a pasta claw?
Because it looks like a claw. It's the claw. There's a noodle stuck to it. Right there. Oh no! Did that go in the pot? I think it went in the pot.
I don't know.
It did. It went in the pot.
So the bottom of the spaghetti spoon or pasta claw, whatever you call it, it's actually got a hole in it.
It's
So that it helps drain your water out. So if you just take like a scoop of pasta there, you bring it up, it's got like claws on it. And so it'll help hold the pasta in there. And then the hole in the bottom of the spoon part helps the water drain out so that you don't have liquid pasta in your bowl or whatever.
Nobody wants watery spaghetti. Well, you might, but that's gross.
So now we're gonna drain the pasta because it's definitely in a lot of water that you don't want.
So I'm going to take a large colander. A big one. That's a big one. Here's a big one. Goes back in there. Close the door. Take this to the sink.
You always want to set up first before you start moving hot things around. So we are currently putting the strainer in the sink first.
Yep.
And moving our faucets out of the way so that there's a clear path to the sink.
All right, you ready? So
And this has handles on it, so you don't necessarily need pot holders.
Right.
But if you have just a plain metal pot, you're going to want to use pot holders. But this one's got handles, so we're good.
Ready? I'm going to do my trick. Hot pot, hot pot, hot pot. Up. I am at the sink. Here we go. All right.
And it's definitely steamy.
Very steamy. It's awesome. Hot pasta. All right. Now, this is a trick that I do. I know a lot of other people don't do it, but I do it. I like to drain the pasta in the colander. Then I like to take the colander, Shake it a little bit, get the excess water out of it. And then I put it in the pot the pasta was in, just to keep water from dripping everywhere.
Almost like we did with the meat, except with the meat, we just put the meat right back into the same pot. This time we just put the whole strainer right back into the pot.
Sometimes if you put cooked pasta into a dry pot, they'll stick.
Yes.
No. No, thanks. All right,
So that is...
This is spaghetti.
And you can serve it up how you like. You just take a fork or a spoon and put some on a plate and spoon yourself up some sauce, and it's delicious. So thank you for watching this video.